right, welcome back to the channel. So I've put out a lot of Edison content over the course of the last year and a half, and I love doing it, but a lot of people ask me all different types of questions about how to improve their gameplay, what do I do to get ready for tournaments, and just some questions that I feel like I wanted to all put into a video to answer a lot of them. And I feel like people in the Edison community could refer back to this video hopefully in the future, just to get like, if you want to start playing this format, or if you want to get better at this format, or if you want to know just what I do as a player who has had some success in Edison format. These are just the things that I personally do. So one of the main ones to just kick things off, this is going to be number one, is utilize a couple of key websites. The first one is edisonformat.com. So this website is amazing. It actually has one of the most important things to me, which is the rulings. So right off the bat, if you go to the webpage and you go to rules, I like to go to this individual card ruling section. Every time you have a question about an Edison format rule, you could just literally come here and you just need to find whatever letter your card begins with, and you can find a ruling for it. So let's say I wanted to know the effect of skill drain and how it works in Edison format. So I would just Control F, skill drain, once we're in this section, and then you can just keep looking until you see it as a bolded card. So there's a lot of things that reference skill drain apparently. Okay, so right here, so it shows skill drain's text in Edison format, and it'll always give you the text that the card had at that time. So this won't be whatever the modern version of it is. This will be the Edison version of the card. But anyways, you can just like answer a lot of your ruling questions just by going to edisonformat.com, going to the ruling section, and there's a bunch of stuff here. They also do have the ban list. A lot of people do actually ask this question as well, like what is the Edison ban list? And I don't know off the top of my head, but there are plenty of websites that you can use that actually have that information available to you. There's also things like the rule book and differences between Edison format and other formats. One of the things that I had to learn is that monsters with zero attack, like two monsters with zero attack, can actually crash into each other and they actually kill each other in battle. I did not know that. So this is something that, you know, there's a whole 13 rules here apparently that are just Edison format compared to other formats. And I think it's important to just know these 13 rules just in case you get into a tournament environment and you might think that something works differently because you play in one of the other formats. But yeah, definitely check this out because these are all going to be Edison format specific. One of the things that I will say is in Konami events, Mind Crush, you do not get to see your opponent's hand under any circumstance. That's just like a Konami policy. So despite what it says here, in Konami events, if you play in like Ultimate Time Wizard tournament or an 8-man win a mat or whatever they have for Edison format, just know that if you do play Mind Crush, you will not be able to see your opponent's hand. The other website that I like to use is Format Library. So I think that this one is amazing for deck lists. So you can just like use this, you go to decks, you can go over here to all formats, click on Edison, and they do have a ton of other formats as you noticed, but if you just click on Edison, you can type in, like, let's say you want to see frog decks, right? So then you just type in frogs, it auto sorts it, so you have all of these frog deck lists. And let's see if I wanted to go and look at, like, I don't know, GYBU at Edison World Qualifier 5, I could see what he played here, and you can also download them. If you click this button, it will actually let you download the deck so that you can import it right into Dueling Book. I use this website a lot. Like, this is probably the most used website for me because I just love going on here, seeing what people top with, seeing what people are playing, downloading the deck into Dueling Book, and then just making videos with it or play testing it or whatever I might decide to do with my friends. But this website's amazing, and I think that everyone should be utilizing this. They have a ton of deck lists from a ton of good players, and I believe they also have replays and stuff. So if you go to like events, and let's see, if we go to Edison, you can see, for example, there was this event right here, Patron Battle Royale 24, 16 players. This was won by Hero Frogs. Alex Demand won on May 16th, 2024. So it's very recent. You can see a deck breakdown, which is amazing. Like, this information, I love statistical stuff like this, like anything that has to do with breaking it down and seeing exactly what the ratios were for everything. So this website is amazing for that. You can even see what the most played cards were, most side decked cards, all that stuff. This just gives you an idea. And you can do this with all the tournaments on formatlibrary.com. They all have this data. But another thing that they have is replays. You can click on a replay and it will literally take you straight into Dueling Book, and you can watch a replay from the top players in this tournament. So I think that that is actually an amazing thing as well. Yeah, the fact that you can just go and watch replays of people who are getting far in tournaments. Now, obviously, you know, this tournament is a bit smaller. This is like just a Patreon one. If you support the Format Library Patreon account, you're allowed to play in these tournaments every month, but they also have much bigger ones on here as well. So just check this out, use this website. If you need to see decks, you know, you can find Blackwing decks, you can find all kinds of replays, you can find events, stuff like that. The other website that I like to use is this one. So this is edisonformat.net. So this is what the homepage will look like when you first go to it. But what I love about this website is that it has all of the upcoming events on it. And I think that that is really crucial to just like knowing what's going on in the community. So you can see here on June 29th, there's going to be an Edison World Championship qualifier, number 7. And it tells you it's free entry. It's hosted by Format Library. You will need to be in a Discord server in order to join this. But yeah, this is something coming up. You can also see that there's an in real life RBET in Maryland on August 3rd. So I will most likely be at this event because Maryland is very close to Philadelphia where I live. I'm on the East Coast in the United States. But yeah, $40 entry, it tells you details there, and then you can like click on it and it'll give you even more details about things like this. So I think that this website is awesome because you can see all of the upcoming things that are happening in Edison format. And there's other things that might not be on here. Like we all know that Nationals in Austin, Texas will have an Ultimate Time Wizard tournament, of course, and that's not up here yet. But it probably will be at some point once Konami officially announces like what they're doing. But if not, then you'll just have to know about what Konami events are happening. But this is good for knowing about all the online ones and RBETs. This is a good website for that. So I like this. Also, this website too has a ban list, which I actually like the way this one looks because it's all visible immediately. Like you can just, you know, see all of it at once. You can also click on the cards and it will give you rulings on the cards too. So I really like edisonformat.net. Look at all these rulings you get. It tells you that it's limited in Edison format. It just has a lot of details. Also, you can click on like these to go straight to TCG Player, which will open up a link. I think that's also pretty amazing. So if you wanted to buy the cards, you can do that as well. Yeah, look at this. It shows you all of the copies of Gladiator Beast Bestiary and including cards that use Bestiary to be made. So I think that this is just very helpful. They also have their own, you know, rulings thing. They have all of these things on the side here that you can learn from. I'm not going to overwhelm you right now with this stuff, but like there's a lot here. Does this card target sub-step triggers, Raikou, just literally Raikou, the battle phase, both those / them, conjunctions, damage step. There's just a ton of things here that you can study up on if you want to know how things work in Edison, because a lot of times people get frustrated when they think that they know how something works and they don't. So just know that like there's a lot of information out there between these 3 websites, between edisonformat.com, formatlibrary.com, and edisonformat.net. There's a lot of information for you to get just by utilizing these 3 websites. I recommend that you bookmark them. I have them all bookmarked. It's amazing for me, but yeah, that's just kind of like a thing that I like to do. Okay, the other thing that I really recommend to people who want to get better at Edison format or just know what's going on in Edison format, you need to join the Discord servers. Like there are a couple Discord servers that I feel like if you really want to play in the tournaments and just join a community of people that are doing the same exact thing as you. Obviously, edisonformat.com's Discord server is one of the most important. They have a ton of channels here that I love to go through on a very regular basis that have information, people talking about deck ideas, they're asking questions to the top players, just sharing ideas, talking about decks, talking about their tournament runs, even if it's just like a local or whatever, or how they feel about a card in testing. There's a ton of things here in terms of information. So this is extremely important. If you're not with Discord yet, you really need to learn to utilize Discord. It is extremely important. Also, all of the online tournaments are played through Discord. So yeah, you just need to be on Discord and in these servers. So edisonformat.com is one of them. The other one is Format Library. There's actually an active tournament happening right now. This is another one that I think is extremely important. They have an Edison format channel. They also just have a ton of events that you can check up on. Now, Format Library is a bit different in the sense that it is not just Edison format. There are all types of formats that pop off and they do tournaments for all of them. So you can see if you want to play YCS Meadowlands format, whatever V-Rains format is, Joey Pegasus format, Battle of Ravine 2. There's just a lot of different formats, but you can also see Edison World Championship qualifiers and stuff like that are in here. Format Library Championship, FLC 35. So there's a ton. But if you're interested in playing different Yu-Gi-Oh formats, I recommend that you join Format Library. This is extremely important to becoming better as a player. I feel like you mainly need to be in these 2. And then if you want to play in RBETs, you will need to join, where is it? Really big Yu-Gi-Oh Discord. So this is Keegan E3 Yu-Gi-Oh's Discord server. I also recommend that you join this one because this is where some of the biggest online tournaments happen in the community. So definitely check this out. There's also a bunch of events happening here, so you can also see this. And remember, these were also on the edisonformat.net website. You can see like Maryland and New York were posted there. So yeah, definitely check out RBET's Discord server as well. And I believe a True Hero server is for Tengu format. So if you're like, you know, if that's your thing, by all means, but we're just trying to do Edison for right now. So the other one is, I would recommend Beast Modes is really good. This is the most important thing in terms of finding out about replays that are happening in War League. I think War League is a group of a lot of the better players in the format who are really competitive. They all play in here, and usually you can find a ton of replays that I personally like to watch. I think that watching replays is one of the ways to improve your gameplay. So what I recommend you do is learn who the top players are. For example, Ludo is the best Blackwing player in Edison format by far. He's won like 2 or 3 tournaments with Blackwings. He's the person responsible for making the modern list with Blackwings, but you can find replays that just feature him. So for example, if you go up here in the Discord server and you have to type in, it's kind of where you can't see it from here, but you have to type in that it has a link and it's from Ludo. But for example, we can see that he won 2-0 versus this person 06 and 2-0 versus Red Mike. And if we scroll down, there are going to be more. So 2-1 versus Diego, just a bunch of different replays. And he typically will play Blackwings. Let me click on one of these and see if I'm right, because I'm saying this and then he might not even be playing Blackwings. But obviously it doesn't matter because the player is really good and you can just find. Okay, so he's playing Blackwings and he did win this match. I believe it was like 2-0. So I like to go and watch the replays of the better players. If you're looking for good frog content or a good frog player to watch, you want to look for Ronak. If you're looking for good Blackwings, again, that's Ludo. If you're looking for good Value Turbo, I would recommend James Ark. He plays that deck very often. If you're looking for good GB content or GB games, I recommend checking yourself into an institution. But yeah, there's a ton of different ways that you can find replays, and they're usually going to all be in this scoreboard thing. So check this out. Join this Discord server. I really like Beast Mode. It's one of my favorite duelists and one of my favorite people. So yeah, just go in here. A ton of good players play in here. I think I just saw Pro Storm's name. Yeah, there's a bunch. There's just a bunch of really good players who play Edison format, and their replays are all here. So you can study them. And this, for me, this is kind of one of the ways that I play test, because I don't actually like play the game as much as I used to, but because I study so many replays and just like watch a lot of content, it helps me to brush up on my skills and just keep myself ready for what's going on in the community. Okay, the other thing that I wanted to say is making side deck guides for yourself. So this is something that I started doing last year when me, a True Hero, and Stengo, we had to play in a Gladiators of Edison 3v3 tournament online. And we actually finished 3rd place in that. But one of the most important things about that tournament was that me and Stengo played the exact same 70 card deck. Like, I built the deck. It was a Hero Frog deck. I built it. I was like, we're both playing this. A True Hero, he's going to play Diva Hero. He knows that deck better than all of us. So we're going to let him do his thing. But me and Stengo, I was like, we're going to play Hero Frogs, and I'm going to make a side deck guide. That way I don't have to worry about when we are in the middle of a duel and you need to figure out how to side deck, what to take out, what to put in. You don't have to ask me while I'm trying to play my opponent what to put in. So I think that doing that taught me making side deck guides is just a good idea in general. Like, if you really care, if you really want to do well in a tournament, I think you should make side deck guides. And the way I do that, let me show you exactly what I do. So you see, this is my default deck, right? I'm going to show you exactly how I do this because this is so important. So I go into solo mode, right? So I go into solo mode and I immediately just click begin siding. This is the first step. So you want to get to this screen where it shows you your side deck, and this is where you can click on the cards and then it'll let you like swap them, right? So basically what I do is I'll say, let's say I'm playing against a deck that I know is going to side deck Devastation Virus, right? So I'll go boom, boom, take this out. I might take this out. Yeah, so these are cards that I would consider taking out, and then depending on the matchup as well, like let's say we want to side out these, and then I'll say, okay, well, if they're playing deck Devastation Virus, if it's Value Turbo, I'll probably do something like all of these crows, right? We probably want some number of Dust Tornadoes or Mirror Force or Torrential, and then we have to figure, okay, if we're going second in game 2, we'll take out this, and let's say we'll take out one more thing, Arageki Break. So what I'll do is I'll take a screenshot of this. Like, I'll screenshot this and I will post this in a little notes that I have. You could do this in Microsoft Excel. You could do it in Discord. You have your own Discord server. If you have a Discord channel or something like that, that you just can post things in that don't really matter and that no one else really sees. You can say versus Value Turbo and then post this screenshot, and it will show you exactly how you side deck versus Value Turbo. And then I'll reset it and I'll say, okay, if I were playing the Frog Mirror match, how would I side deck? And then I would go, okay, I want these Vanity's Fiends, I want my Torrential here, I want my DD Crows, and I'll start taking cards out the same way. So depending on like, you know, if it's the mirror match, I'm like, oh, maybe like Rise is not that good, or maybe I don't want all of these econs and stuff like that. So you literally start to click on the cards until you decide like what you want to side in and out, take a screenshot of it, and then say now versus the mirror match. And you just keep going, and you make this for, I know this is a lot, but you make this for every deck that you think that you'll actually play against, right? Eventually, you won't have to do this because you'll just know exactly how to side deck. Like I've been playing Hero Frogs for so long that I don't really need a side deck guide. Like I just do it off of memory and just knowing like what I'm doing in the moment. But if you're trying to get better, you're trying to improve your gameplay, I think that making the side deck guide first and just having this to refer back to is a really good idea. Study it yourself, commit it to memory, and then you'll have a much easier time, especially if you're playing in real life, because you only have 45 minutes at Konami events to play. So if you get used to online events where you can just take forever, that's not a real thing in real life. So I recommend that like anything you could do to get faster, including learning how to side deck faster, it's important. So I really recommend making a side deck guide for yourself, but that's my method right there. Okay, next thing is I think that you need to play the game a lot more than people realize. Most people just want to ask questions about decks and get answers about them, and that's cool to just get information, but at the end of the day, no amount of information that you have is going to make you better at the game than actually playing the game. And what I recommend, there's two things. You could either do Edison rated, which, you know, at first it's going to be kind of cringe because when you first start out, you're probably playing against people who aren't that good at first, but then you keep winning and you get up there. Some of the best players in the entire Edison format are at the top of the ladder. Ronak, James Ark, there's a bunch of them. The people who, like a True Hero's been up there, Bad Robot, people who are just really, really good at the game, they tend to play Edison ladder sometimes, and they are taking up the top 10 spots. In fact, why don't we just look at the leaderboard real quick, because I bet that if we check this out, where is it? Ratings, rankings, here we go. Rankings, you can go Edison format and just see who the top 10 are. Okay, look at that. Ronak, just like I said, I bet one of these is James Ark. I don't know what his current alternate account is, but he has a bunch of them. So one of these is probably him. Daime has definitely won tournaments before in the past. Has topped a bunch of tournaments. This is one of the best players in Edison format as well. So yeah, I'm seeing names like I know Bringer of Rain. There's a couple of these players that I've seen do really well in tournaments, and the list goes on. Roger Smith, aka Luigi. So there's that. But there's a lot of players in here that best Yu-Gi-Oh player in A. Yeah, there's a lot of good players. The point is that Edison ladder is not to be slept on. I know that people are like, oh, like ladder is just a bunch of randoms just playing and trying to get clout or whatever, but these people happen to be the ones who top the most tournaments also, right? So like, it's not for nothing. If you climb this ladder, you are going to run into some serious competition, and not even that long into it, honestly. Like, I think that if you just play, you know, for a day and grind your account up, if you're doing well enough, you'll end up in the top 100 or so. And if you get in the top 100, you will start to play against very real people. So yeah, I think that this is something that you should utilize. But again, let me just go back to show you exactly what you do. So you just go here, format, you click on Edison format rated, and you click join pool, and it will allow you to, it will match you with an opponent. It'll match you with an opponent. You click ready, and then you guys just play, and you just keep doing that. Try to be courteous on there, even when people aren't the nicest to you, because you run into all kinds of characters. But yeah, I think that just using this is really good. The second thing I want to say about getting better in terms of playing is that if you do not like Dueling Book, then I recommend you and a friend meet up somewhere in person, their place, your place, a local, and just play games against each other, not necessarily with the goal to beat each other, but with the goal to improve. What that means is you allow takebacks in situations where normally, like if it's a tournament, obviously you're not gonna, you know, take back stuff or whatever. But if it is in playtesting and you do something, you're like, oh, that doesn't really make much sense, let's rewind it and see how it would play if I did the right thing, and then you kind of learn from there. Don't get used to the idea of taking things back, because obviously in tournaments you're not going to be allowed to most of the time. But I think that it's important to go in with the mindset that I'm not just trying to beat my friend. Like when me and Silverman playtest, or when me and McKay playtest, we don't sit in front of each other and try to say, oh, I just want to beat you as much as possible, and that's my goal. Because my goal is not to beat my friends. My goal is really to win the tournament. That is my actual goal. My goal is bigger than just beating my friend. I don't want to be a big fish in a small pond. I want to win the entire event. And if I want to win the entire event, I need to know how to beat other people who are not just my friend, who I'm used to their play style and stuff like that. But I think that just learning how to play the game properly requires that you do things like rewind it, or sometimes play with your hands open and figure out what the bet, like discuss it, like talk throughout the game and say like, okay, do you think it's better if I set Raikou here, or should I summon the Trooper and get mill 3? Like, what do you think would be like the better thing to do? And not using hindsight bias to do it, but just actually thinking like critically about every situation. What should I do in this situation? And work through the games. Play the game out, right? Like play the actual game out, but definitely talk about the decision making as you do it in a way that you wouldn't if your opponent was real in a tournament. Because I want you to get used to the idea of asking yourself certain questions while you are playing the game. That's really important, something that I do. I have like a checklist of things that I'm always asking myself as I play. For example, when I'm playing against Value Turbo, I'm always thinking about, okay, what cards are there bombs that I haven't seen yet, and which ones have I seen? So if they milled Dark Arm, then I kind of check that off as like, okay, Dark Arm is gone now. If Return gets milled, I'm like, okay, Return's milled. If I haven't seen Return, they have a back row, and I start looking at their Banish pile, I'm like, all right, well, let me prepare myself for the idea that Return could happen. Same thing with like Burial and Brain Control and Gores and Mirror Force and Torrential and Solemn. You just kind of want to start to develop a checklist, and you want to do that against all the decks in the format. I think that it's really important to have a checklist in your mind of things that can happen, things that their back row could be. If you see one bottomless in the graveyard, you know that they still have one left, things like that. You don't see the Torrential, you might want to be like, all right, well, let me play a little conservative right now, or just still play aggressive if you feel like your opponent doesn't have it. But whatever the case may be, having that checklist in your head is extremely important in my opinion. So I always go through that in my head while I'm playing a match. Another thing I want to bring up is the idea of trusting the deck builders. So this is a deck that Ronick made. It's Plant Frogs. It's one of the most powerful frog decks in the format next to Hero Frogs. It's definitely up there, and he's had a lot of success with it. So have other people with his deck like Leo Baca. So if you're going to find a deck list on Format Library or any of those websites that I gave you in the beginning, I want you to at least try to play it as is before you start making changes. I see this thing where people get a deck list, and literally the deck list, you're taking it from top 8 or top 4 finals or the winning deck list, right? And you'll start changing things immediately. And I just think that that is a mistake. Like, I'm a notorious net decker. I like net decking too, just like the next person. But what I don't do is I don't take someone's deck and immediately start changing it unless I find something to be egregious. But even then, I think the rule is just like play the deck as is first and then start making your changes after you play test it enough. For example, some people will start asking me things about frog decks like, oh man, 1-for-1 is really bad for me. I keep drawing it after I've already done my substitute combo. I don't really like this card. Should I take it out? And it's just like, listen, bro, if you take out 1-for-1, there's no hope for you. Like, taking 1-for-1 out of a frog deck is actually just insane. It's insane. So there's a reason why the builders put these cards in their deck. There's a reason why they also saw success with the deck. Obviously, they're good players, but they're also built their deck in a way to be good. And you are messing it up when you start taking out cards because you think you know best. I don't want to discourage people from innovating and things like that, because we need people to come into the format and change things around and update lists and make them better. But when you're first trying to learn something or first picking up a deck, do not just go in and start saying like, oh, I'm taking this out and I'm going to go down to 1 Lone Fire, and you know what, that Dandelion card, I drew it too many, let me just take this out, and you just start changing things. Like, I'm going to put in 3 upstarts now. And it's like, all right, well, if things start messing up for you and it's not performing the same way, don't just say the deck is trash, because it might be what you did to the deck is trash. Just FYI. So I think that trusting the deck builders is another key part in becoming good at Edison format. Also, one of the cool things is that a lot of the deck builders happen to be in Edison Format's Discord server. So sometimes you can ask questions and they'll either already be answered by that person, or you can ask that person. Now, I'm not saying that you should just go around tagging every single top player in the Discord server, because that might get you blocked, or you'll just get like a nasty message after a while because people don't want to be tagged all day just to answer Yu-Gi-Oh questions. But in general, people are typically friendly in the Discord servers and they will help you out if they have time to. Just remember, be courteous, because you don't know what a person is doing with their life at the current time. You don't know what they might be working, they might be at the gym, they might be with their wife or their kids or something. So don't just assume that like I tagged this guy and I'm waiting for him to answer and I'm just sitting there tapping my watch like, all right, where's Ronick at? Like, he still hasn't answered my frog question. Should I take out 1-for-1 or not? Like, he's not just going to respond to you immediately. But you know, people like him are one of the best at responding to people. So just kind of getting that out there. I think that trusting a deck builder is the first step in net decking. And then you want to make changes later on after you've played with it enough and you have your own preferences or your own ideas. You're like, let me try this out. But don't just start doing that from the gate. The other thing I wanted to say is that you should learn what the other decks play. Learn what the most standard list is of all of the top decks. And once you know that, it'll help you to actually play against them. So for example, this is a very standard Dragon Turbo list. This main deck is literally Ghost Riders that he got second place with twice, I believe. Like, this exact main deck, I'm pretty sure is exactly the same as the one that he used. At least one of the tournaments that he got second place with it. But he's the GOAT when it comes to this deck, the Dragon Turbo deck. So what I like to do is know what the standard version, because that's most likely the build that people are going to play. So when you see Dragon Turbo, when you see somebody go Cards of Continents Whitestone, you can kind of say, all right, I know that this deck probably doesn't play Mirror Force and Torrential in the main deck. You know, it probably just plays Tragodia, things like that. And so it'll help you to make decisions, because you do need to like rush this deck down when you play against it. Same thing with decks like, let's look at Value Turbo. Let's see Value Turbo. So this is a Value Turbo deck list. I won't say that it's super standard, but like if you just know the general cards that Value Turbo plays, right? I think that this might be OGs that he won the RBET with, because I see the main deck Devastation Virus here and I see no Solemn, so I'm assuming this is his list. But just know that, you know, if you can get an idea of what cards are in the most standard version of the deck, or the builds that people are more likely to play, it'll help you to make decisions in the game. I think going in blind and saying like, oh, I don't really care about Machina Control, I don't have to think about what they're playing, is a mistake. Like, you should know what a Machina Control deck is playing, right? Like, you should have an idea of, oh, how many hamsters does the deck usually play? It usually plays 3. How many Raikos and stuff like that? How many Lilas? You should have an idea of those things. How many pots do they usually play? And obviously these things aren't set in stone, right? People can do whatever they want to a deck list, but I think it's a good idea for you to just have an idea of what the lists usually play. That way you know what you're doing in the particular game that you're in. Another thing to help yourself improve the Edison format is that you need to play in tournaments. I know that some of us have anxiety, including myself, about playing. Sometimes when I get into a competitive mindset, I don't know why, but before round 1, I just get kind of like a bit of anxiety about the whole thing. It's really strange. This has existed before I ever topped a YCS or won a YCS, and it's existed literally every single tournament after that. So I understand that some people might have anxiety about tournaments, but I promise you, nothing will help you better than just getting into the mindset of playing in tournaments. There are a ton of tournaments to play in. Look at all these are just Edison. There are so many tournaments to play in, and this is not even all of them, but these are the ones that Format Library hosts or has, but some of them are on EdisonFormat.com or in that Discord server rather. There's a ton of tournaments to play in, and I think that you just need to get used to that environment. So let's look at this Peak of the Beak, for example. This is won by Spiral, 122 players. It's a decent size. It was won by Glad Beast, which is crazy, but here we are. Look at these deck lists. You can see what got first. Second was Ghost Rider, who was playing Dragon Turbo, and I believe this is the exact list that I showed you a second ago. Also, you have the Plant Frog deck that I showed you a second ago as well, Leo Baca, aka Ronak's protege right here. So he got 3rd place, and you can click on any of these as always. So I can click on it and you can download the deck list. But more importantly, play in the tournament. If you play in a tournament, I think that you won't guarantee see results immediately. Like, I don't know if you're going to make top 16 off the bat, but you have to keep trying, right? Like, you have to keep trying. You have to get used to it. Dueling Book is a different game kind of than in real life anyway. Like, obviously it's still Yu-Gi-Oh, but it does require like a different type of skill that you need to play on Dueling Book. But I think that being good on Dueling Book does translate into real life anyway. A lot of the people who are good on Dueling Book are also good in real life. It just so happens. So make it a habit of just playing in tournaments often as you can. You know, take a break when necessary, but I think it's a good idea to just play in tournaments. I love the grind. I love learning from my losses. Every time I lose, I review those replays more than the ones where I win. And that's another thing that I wanted to say is like, definitely watch all the matches that you lose. Go into your Dueling Book, go into your duel records and see like, okay, what did I lose to? Let's see. So you can see right here. Now this is our account that I just use for like progression series and stuff like that. So Skyclaw is Kenny. So these are literally progression series games. And then Stango is just like me and him playing for funsies. Damon is OG. But come in here, watch your replays. You can actually see exactly what you did wrong when you lose. So I love looking at all of the ones that, you know, have that red on them, because those are the ones that I learn from the most. My misplays keep me up at night. And when I mess up, I'm like, all right, what did I do wrong? Let me make sure that I don't do that again and commit it to memory. So you definitely want to review your replays when you can. I think it's important to review wins and losses, but more importantly the losses, because you might not realize that you did something wrong and that's why you lost. Now granted, sometimes you're going to watch a replay, and if you watch it with both the hands visible, you'll see something that is a little bit obscure that you could have done to win the game, but it's like, was that reasonable? You have to ask yourself that question, because some misplays are hard to determine, and they might just be a hindsight thing, like, oh well, if you knew he was going to top deck Heavy Storm, then maybe that was the wrong play. But like, if he had 27 cards in his deck and Heavy Storm was one of them, so he had a 1 out of 27 chance of drawing Heavy Storm, I'm not exactly playing around the Heavy Storm, to be honest. Like, there's a 1 out of 27 chance from the draw it. I'm putting him on better have it. So stuff like that. But you might see in a replay like, oh, he actually top decked the Heavy Storm and I lost. Like, you didn't really do anything wrong. He just hit that 1 out of 27, which I think is like 3%, close to 3%. So yeah, that's something that I love to do. And sometimes I also take my replays and review them with other people to make sure I'm not crazy. Like, hey, watch this with me. Let me know what I did wrong. Let me know what I could have changed. And people will blatantly tell me like, okay, I think that right here, I would have done this. I would have set this. I wouldn't have set that. I would have dropped the gores here, etc. Sometimes you'll find out, oh, I wouldn't have sided that in. You're going first, or I would have sided that out. You're going second. All of these things you can learn so much from just exchanging information with other people and seeing what comes out of it and just committing that stuff to memory. So make sure you review your replays. I think now that we officially have a big three in Edison format, these are the top 3 decks. It would be Black Wings, Hero Frogs, and Value Turbo. You want to make sure that you know these 3 matchups above all else. When I was at YCS Indianapolis, I literally played against 5 Value decks. I played against 2 Blackwing decks, and I played against the Hero Frog deck in top 4 to make it to finals. Every tournament I've played in Edison format, pretty much, especially in real life, has been against mostly these decks. Like, these are the most common decks that you'll play against. These are also the decks that happen to win and perform the best across the board. So you want to make sure you understand how your deck plays into these matchups. I recommend that everybody just learn these 3 the most, and then all the other matchups you can learn as well after that, but like commit these 3 because you're more likely every single round you sit in front of somebody, you're more likely to play against one of these 3. That's just the reality of it. Literally 9 times out of 10, I would say that you're going to play against one of these 3 decks in the tournament. And if you don't know how to play any of these matchups, you're in trouble. And the only way you're really going to get better at it is to just play against them often, just practice. That's literally what you have to do. You have to practice. And when you lose to it, you have to say, okay, why did I lose? Did he just draw a god hand? Did I make some mistake? Did I side deck incorrectly? Maybe I have to switch up my side deck. It's not doing enough. Maybe if I beat Black Wings, but I'm losing to Hero Frogs, maybe I should commit more of my side deck to Hero Frogs and say, okay, I already kind of beat Black Wings, so I don't have to worry about that deck as much. But these are the types of things that you have to ask yourself and figure out. Just learn these 3 matchups: Value, Black Wings, and Hero Frogs. Make sure you know exactly how to play against those decks. I don't think that there is a better piece of advice I can give you about Edison format right now, especially as I record this, than learning these big 3. And one of the last things I want to leave you with is knowing how the other decks will side deck against you. So this is extremely important across all decks. Let's use this one for example. Everyone knows that fairies are really weak to deck devastation virus, which means that your side deck should be to counteract how effective that card is against you. And I know a lot of people, now this is an old list. This might be Pro Storm's RBET Rulers winning deck list from 2022. But let's just say, for example, if I know they're siding in deck devastation virus, I will put in these Thunder Kings, probably this guy, Free to Brave Wanderer, Breaker, Dust Trados, definitely my body as a shield, just to kind of like thwart some of the effect of how deck devastation virus performs against your deck. You don't want to auto lose to deck devastation virus. It's really not fun, and you have to just know like this is something that's probably going to happen to you throughout the tournament, and the decks that are dark, they're the ones that can play it. So just expect it as a thing. Like, know that their back row, when they have a monster that's 2000 attack and dark on the field, it might be deck devastation virus. Especially if they went out of their way to make it, you should just know like, all right, well, that's probably what's happening right now. I see oftentimes people will do things like try to brain control an arm wing or deprison an arm wing or whatever, and the opponent's trying to get that extra little bit of value out of their DDV. So they'll do those things like leave it there or attack with it or whatever and see if you respond. And as soon as you do, they chain deck dev, and now they get more cards out of you than just your monsters. So in games 2 and 3, just be more conscious of like what cards people put in against your deck, right? You also have to know, if we were talking about this deck again, Light Imprisoning Mirror might come in, you know, certain decks can side that card. So you want to put in your Dust Tornadoes always against a deck that you feel like can side Light Mirror. I would say that if they're playing Raikou in their deck, they probably won't be siding in Light Mirror, I imagine. Now, some people are unhinged, they'll do anything, but I feel like most decks that run Raikou really need the Raikous. So like, yeah, you want to make sure that you just know what they're going to put in against you, and that way you kind of play around it or side deck around it. For example, when I'm playing frogs, I always think about Soul Release. So when I'm doing my frog combo, I'll often leave a Treeborn Frog in my deck so that way Soul Release doesn't absolutely blow me out. Now granted, when you play like that, you leave yourself open to cards like DD Crow. So if you put only one Treeborn in the graveyard, then DD Crow becomes more effective against you. So you have to really look at your hand and decide in the moment, can I handle a DD Crow right now, or can I handle a Soul Release? Like, think about in a specific situation that you're in, what makes the most sense. But just know, Soul Release is a card that could happen to you when you're playing the Frog deck, or when you're playing like Christia Sworn or Light Sworn or stuff like that. For a true hero, I know that he always talks about Vanity's Fiend and Fossil Dyna being the bane of his existence when he plays Diva Hero. So he's prepared to play against those cards in games 2 and 3. So he side decks things like Smashing Ground and let's say Snowman Eater and whatever it takes to deal with those cards, because you just know people see your deck and they say, oh, this card is fantastic against you. So you just have to be ready for that. And with that being said, I think I'm going to wrap this one up. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about this video and videos that are just kind of giving you how I feel about certain things in Edison format, just my own personal tips and things like that. I know people have all kinds of questions, and I'm hoping that this answered a lot of them. But I also talk about so much Edison stuff on my channel, so there are plenty of videos where we play decks that you might like and we try things out. Sometimes, you know, it goes crazy, but yeah, we try out everything. And if you want to see gameplay with another type of deck, just let me know in the comments, something that you really like. We've been doing Glad Beast lately and stuff like that. So there's just a bunch of information on this channel. These videos, because Edison format is locked, all of these videos are basically timeless, right? Like the format can't actually change in terms of what cards are in the pool. It'll always have the exact same ban list, you know? So like these videos don't really get outdated per se. And there are also a ton of other YouTubers that you can subscribe to. I have some on the side here, but there's a bunch of them. And I think that a lot of them do have fantastic channels. You just have to figure out who you can tolerate and who you can't. I know not everyone is for everyone, but figure out the content creators who you do like. You like to hear what they say. You like the way they say it. You feel like they actually make sense and that they're not just selling you a dream. And subscribe to them. Turn on notifications. Do whatever you have to do, but stay up to date with their channels. I feel like at this point in Edison format, there are so many YouTubers that there's no reason that you can't find at least 2 or 3 that you like and hit the subscribe button and start to learn from those people. So I'm going to end this one here, and I will catch you in the next one, guys. Peace.